It's Monday night, and you know what that means. Jersey First brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk. And of course, I am New Jersey's award winning premier journalist, without a doubt, top 100 Latino, Vida Latino Spirit Online magazine for 2020, 2021, and now in 2022. And certainly your favorite Latino conservative. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe. Hoping you all have a wonderful start to your month of May. Again, my birthday month. So a shout out to all my fellow Taurus out there. Yes, the greatest of all the zodiacs out there celebrating this wonderful month. Finally, some good weather today after a very rainy weekend. So I want to thank you all for joining us here from wherever and however you may be doing so on Facebook Live via StreamYard and also on YouTube via Jersey First. Once again, thank you all for tuning in here tonight. A shout out to my New York Yankees. Let me get some victory tea here. Hold on. You know how it is, folks. Still in first place after taking 2 out of 3 from the Texas Rangers. And coincidentally, the Yankees still have the best record in the American League. Just to remind everybody of who indeed runs New York. It is the New York Yankees. Shout out to all the great moms out there. Again, hope you had a wonderful Mother's Day weekend. My heart and prayers go out to all of you out there who were not able to celebrate with your mothers for different reasons. Again, my heart and prayers go out to you during a difficult time. Certainly for others, hopefully you get the opportunity to enjoy time with mom. I know I did, and certainly grateful to her for raising such an incredible human being like yours truly, of course. And a shout out to my aunt for also spoiling me the way she does. And again, a shout out to all the moms out there, women that, gave birth to us, because for some people on the left in New Jersey, it seems like they'd rather call, people who get pregnant birthing person. No, it's not a birthing person. It's a woman. There's a uterus down there. There's ovaries, women. Right? So happy Mother's Day to all the women out there that for some reason those on the left in New Jersey still sort of struggle with. It's amazing to me, folks, because there are people with law degrees and graduate degrees who somehow failed high school biology. I didn't, and I don't need to be a biologist to define what a woman is, unlike some other people out there maybe who go as far up as becoming Supreme Court justices. Who knows? But for those on the left in New Jersey that are still struggling with biology, my heart goes out to actually behind me. You can see that besides the plethora of awards that I have behind me, signifying my excellence, you can see plenty of my books back there in my library. Yes, some books I have from undergrad and in grad school. And I know for a fact there's an Intro to Biology book that's back there. So anybody on the left in New Jersey that needs that book, I'll be happy to mail it to you. I'll pay the postage just to show you how great of a person that I am, just to help out my fellow New Jerseyans that maybe are struggling with basic biology. In any event, folks, hope you all had a wonderful Mother's Day weekend. Certainly, I'll have a lot to say at the closing of the show as I pick this week's winner of, indeed, the worst journalist in the state of New Jersey. There's always a lot to pick from, but I'll let you know who this week's winner is. Spoiler alert, it's somebody from Insider NJ. What a surprise. Folks, again, for those of you tuning in on Facebook Live and also on YouTube, do me a favor. It takes 2 seconds. Sharing is caring. Click the share button right there on your feed, and it'll go right there for everyone else to watch tonight. So please do that. Once again, sharing is caring here on Jersey First. Don't forget to check out the Jersey First website at www.jerseyfirst.org. That's Jersey1st.org. Also, make sure you like Jersey First on Facebook, and of course, follow it on both Instagram and Twitter. Check out my own Twitter at No Filter Uribe, as well as my own Instagram at The Amazing Professor. And of course, check out Fernando Uribe on Facebook. Yes, it's that handsome man with the Joe Biden sucks t-shirt on there in the cover photo. You can't miss me, folks. I mean, it's kind of hard not to see me there, But in any event, we appreciate you tuning in here tonight. We got a great guest coming up in just a moment, folks. He's running a little bit late, but he'll be joining us in, again, just a couple of minutes. So stay right where you are. You definitely want to tune in to the end of the show, folks, definitely, for my closing thoughts about who's the worst journalist this week in New Jersey. You definitely want to stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about an issue that's very important here in the Garden State and even throughout the country, and that's domestic violence. And that's sort of the central theme of today's show, again, with my guest coming up in just a few moments. But it's really interesting, ladies and gentlemen, because, domestic violence continues to plague our cities and our states all across the continental U.S. It's still a global problem as well. And when I think of worthwhile organizations, and I think of people that are dedicating their time, their resources, their effort, their sweat, right? Their, everything about themselves to combat domestic violence, to be advocates for victims. I mean, it's a really noble calling, I have to say. As someone who's a dedicated philanthropist, as you know, obviously, if you follow me on social media, right? And aside from the, journalistic awards behind me, there's a good amount of philanthropic awards as well. I understand the importance of wanting to help your community. But when you think about those that volunteer their time for domestic violence, I mean, that's as high a calling as I can think of, ladies and gentlemen, for a problem that is still so pervasive here in the state of New Jersey. Now, of course, the legislature has been making strides with passing legislation, certainly passed, in both chambers in Trenton, in both the state assembly and the state senate, certainly signed by different governors. But still more needs to be done. And a great organization that I want to point out today is Safeway Out. Now, for those of you, again, maybe you're just getting your tax return back, maybe you're running into a little bit of disposable income. Who knows? Maybe, hey, listen, it's the NBA playoffs, it's the NHL playoffs, baseball season's underway. Maybe you're betting on FanDuel or DraftKings, and maybe you have just a little bit disposable income on you. Do me a favor. Instead of getting that cup of coffee in the morning or that breakfast sandwich you could probably do without, right? Because we all want to get summer ready, as they say, correct? Well, donate it to Safeway Out and go to their website, www.safewayout.org. Your donation online is safe, secure, and indeed tax deductible. And it goes a long way, ladies and gentlemen, in helping not just only victims of domestic violence, but those great men and women working within this organization. Let me just give you some tidbits here about how important Safeway Out is, just to sort of give you a perspective about the great work that they do. Now, again, they are there to empower, to train, and to protect. And their programs are specifically designed for anyone experiencing or who has experienced assault, domestic abuse, unwanted attention from a stalker, and or another form of violence or intimidation. The following programs are offered separately or combined to shore up your sense of peace and security while at home or out in the world. They include home assessments, self-defense classes, situation awareness and security programs, as well as personal protection workshops, a night watch, as well as carol kits, in addition to emergency housing. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't say enough about what organizations like Safeway Out do. Because as we all know, domestic violence continues to permeate on our news feeds. It continues to permeate in our news cycles, right? Whether it's in Hollywood with sensationalist trials and accusations of domestic violence being thrown around. Ladies and gentlemen, we're also seeing it in everyday mainstream. Okay? I'm sure we've all known someone, whether they're married in a domestic cohabitation or whatever, that have been victims of domestic violence, that have seen domestic violence up close. And it's a sad situation, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously for women who tend to be victimized more, but also for men. And when we see that domestic violence continues to be a significant problem in New Jersey, it's a great way to see that, hey, you know what? Organizations like Safeway Out go a long way, as I said, in raising awareness, in really pushing their advocacy, and at the same time, really making noise in Trenton in the state legislature to make sure that our legislators aren't just sort of window dressing, but really rolling up their sleeves and passing legislation that makes sense, that helps victims, that helps them not just emotionally and psychologically, but also financially, where we know that victims of domestic violence oftentimes are left really to fend for themselves. And it's a really tragic situation, folks. And again, and just for those of you, again, I'm not trying to sort of make this melodramatic, but for someone who worked in the criminal justice system for years before transitioning into academia, and obviously into journalism now too. Obviously, sort of I'm a man that wears many hats, ladies and gentlemen. But I remember during my years working in the criminal justice system, firsthand what domestic violence looked like. Okay, not just seeing stuff on YouTube, seeing stuff in pop culture, in music videos or feature films or television series, right? But seeing it firsthand by talking to victims, by talking to women who were just beaten, and even men too who were also victimized by domestic violence. We don't really talk about men too often because we tend to sort of see this, the stigma that's attached to it, or the statistics are really just more about, predicated along the lines of more women are victimized nationally and also here in New Jersey. Those are just the facts. And it's unfortunate. And certainly, again, when we talk about, this sort of, and again, folks, we're just having some technical difficulties here, trying to make sure we get our guest on in a moment. Just bear with us here on Jersey First, folks. You don't want to go anywhere. We got great guests here in just a moment. And certainly you want to tune in for my closing monologue here this evening. But folks, when we talk about, once again, about domestic violence, we talk about the fact that it is a epidemic almost. And despite the amount of awareness that we have, despite the amount of resources available to us, and again, advocacy, right? We start learning about domestic violence as young as elementary school. I remember, going to workshops, learning about it in college, okay? Learning about the fact that these are serious problems. And despite the fact that we have put a lot of money into resources to raise awareness, it still remains a very pervasive problem here in New Jersey. It remains a pervasive problem in New Jersey where, again, there aren't enough advocacy groups out there that give their time and their awareness to this problem. But those out there that are working diligently night and day to do this are people like my guest tonight. He is the CEO of Safeway Out, folks, all the way down in South Jersey. He's, I'm not going to blow up his spot too much here tonight. He's a little bit of a conservative, but I know we won't talk about that tonight. He's also a long-suffering Buffalo Bills fan, but a great American. Folks, he is Nicholas Luciano here tonight. Join us on Real Talk. Nicholas, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. I apologize to you and your guests for being late. I got stuck at work, got stuck with the kids. All right. It was a total fiasco, even though I had everything planned out to make your show.
But, no problem, Nick. And I appreciate that. And again, you're here, and that's what matters. So I did start off the program shedding some light on Safeway Out, obviously, the website, the programs you offer, which we'll get into in a moment. But I also want to just sort of, on behalf of our viewers tonight, I just want to say thank you because I know that you're doing God's work. I mean, you are a man who diligently works night and day to help victims, to help raise awareness. And it's something that I think you can't measure in dollars and cents, ladies and gentlemen. You can't measure in sweat and tears and effort. But Nicholas is a guy that I know firsthand is really doing a great job in being that advocate for victims of domestic violence. So, Nicholas, let's get right to it here because I talked a little bit about at the beginning the notion that Safeway Out, again, their pillar or sort of like their cornerstone is to empower, to train, and protect. What prompted you? What was your epiphany to get involved with domestic violence advocacy and awareness?
So that's a great question. It's I started about 4 years ago, a little more than 4 years ago, actually, where I wanted to volunteer at a domestic violence shelter. And I don't know what came over me. It was, the way my ADD brain works. I was sitting on the couch talking to my wife saying, I kind of want to volunteer and do something. And I'm not much of a follower. I didn't want to join another organization. So I thought I'd, on my own, teach self-defense, safety planning, security type classes at a women's battered shelter was how I worded it. That's how much, I didn't know much about it. So I emailed a couple of places, offered my services. Camden County Women's Center got back to me and they vetted me and all that. And then eventually they let me go and teach. And while there, talking to the women who were actually at the safe house, said, yeah, this is all well and good. my abuser, this guy's 300 pounds. He's got guns. He's got knives. Me throwing a punch or doing some pepper spray training, what is that going to do? So, well, you got security systems, you get people that can help you, protect you. And, and none of them had money. None of them, I was surprised how few of them even knew those were options. So I started a GoFundMe, raised the money, and bought a bunch of do-it-yourself security items and started passing it out at the shelter. And then one night, the director of the organization of Camden County Women's Center called me up, said, "Hey, we got this other client. It's an emergency situation. Her ex-boyfriend said he's going to go over there and kill her." Now, I was just like most people. I mean, I was naive to how everything works with all of this. My first response was, "So call the police." What do what am I supposed to do? I didn't know cops don't actually just sit outside somebody's house all night. Whether they should or not, I guess that's another debate, but they just don't. So I went to her house. I put in all these security measures. I stayed with her and her son through the night to help keep, make her feel safe. Cops drove by a few times. That's when I really started seeing the need. And then, a few weeks later, they contacted me about another client. And then before I knew it, other organizations had heard about me, prosecutors' offices, other DV agencies, human trafficking. Hey, I got this client. She's scared to death. She can't sleep, can't eat. She's convinced this guy's going to kill her. She doesn't have a lot of money. Is there anything you can do? So I would go there and outfit these houses with door bars and alarms and cameras and motion sensors. And I'd give them some self-defense items, and I'd go over what to do if, we'd give them rides to places. Sometimes we'd stash them in hotels for a few days while the police were looking for their attacker. But just little things like that. And it just blew up from there. We got other volunteers who've been really helping us out. And that's how it started. It really started on accident. This was not intentioned. I mean, I'm sitting there ordering a book, starting a nonprofit for dummies. I had no idea how any of this worked, the taxes and the EIN numbers and being registered here and there and doing this paperwork and that paperwork and corporate bylaws. These are things that I just didn't know anything about. I'm a, dumb former enlisted Marine, just didn't have any of this experience, so I learned a lot of it on the fly. I'm still learning. So that's where it came from.
Well, folks, again, if you're just joining us right now, it's 6:17 here on the East Coast. And this evening, my guest is Safeway Out Chief Executive Officer Nicholas Luciano, joining us here on Real Talk via Jersey. First, again, folks, if you're watching us on Facebook Live via StreamYard and also on YouTube, sharing is caring. Just click the share button, and it'll get you on the newsfeed as well. So we appreciate that. Nicholas, and folks, by the way, also check out safewayout.org, an incredible nonprofit organization dedicated to raising awareness for victims of domestic violence, and also being an advocate throughout the Garden State, situated down in South Jersey. Again, folks, you can also get in touch with a qualified Safeway Out volunteer to request help with security, self-defense classes, or more. You can text 833-396-HELP or click on the website again to fill out and submit a client intake form. So you can do that as well. Folks, donate whatever you can. I know it's May. Maybe you're getting a nice tax return. Maybe you're doing some gambling right now during the hockey playoffs, basketball playoffs, MLB, whatever it is, whatever disposable income you can. Give up that breakfast sandwich. Get summer ready, okay? Give up that coffee. Donate what you can. Your donation is safe and secure, as well as tax deductible online. Nicholas, when we talk about domestic violence, I mean, it's certainly, as I alluded to at the beginning of the program, it is, it's an epidemic that continues. And despite the amount of resources that we put into this, whether it's in our public schools, whether it's on our college campuses, whether it's even to some extent in pop culture, social media, right? Organizations, we see domestic violence every day, whether we see it sensationalized in trials with elites in Hollywood, or we see it in everyday America. It's a problem that law enforcement is still, kind of handcuffed with. And I think even nonprofits, are also facing still a lot of struggles. Do you see it that way also?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people have become desensitized to it. Either desensitized or they just don't care. So, you made the comment that I'm a long-suffering Buffalo Bills fan, and you're right. Although we have been relevant lately.
Yes.
So I'm part of a few fan groups, and bear with me for 1 second. O.J. Simpson still gets a lot of positive mentioning in these fan groups that I'm a part of. If people who know me, they know I'm a diehard Buffalo Bills fan, just diehard. I love the team. It's probably the only thing I do. I mean, I work, I do the charity, I help my family. My one thing for me is, watching the Buffalo Bills play. So anyway, a lot of people in those fan groups are always posting, commenting, playing videos about how much they love O.J. Simpson. And some of them do it in a way that's almost antagonizing.
Yeah.
Still one of the greatest players of all time, O.J. Simpson, and it's strange. And they're doing it for reactions.
Sure.
They are. It's quite obvious what they're doing. And, the Bills fans base is kind of divided in half. And everybody just kind of laughs. Oh, hey, he was found not guilty. Ha ha. And then they make jokes about the murders. I believe he killed him. I don't know how anybody can even at this point.
He killed two people. Yeah, it's clear as day. Yeah, he killed two people. Yeah.
And let's say you don't want to believe it. One thing was obvious was there was a lot of domestic violence in that relationship. And it was appalling. Just that it really occurred to me just in those fan pages, on social media, how easy it was everybody to laugh, and how that was a big hot topic for people to post and talk about. O.J. Simpson, he was the greatest, almost on a daily basis, and it was obvious what the intent was, and it really got me thinking that. Man, like there are people, they just don't care. They don't see it. They think it's funny. And a lot of people, and it's disturbing to me. It is. That's just an example.
Nicholas, you're absolutely right. And Nicholas, if you don't mind, just maybe tuning out your volume a little bit on whatever your device you're on, that would help a little bit. Yeah, just hearing some static. Just want to make sure our audience, just lower the volume a little bit. Yeah, that'd be great, just for our audience. But Nicholas, you raised a great point. And for some reason, people still believe that that verdict was correct, right? That he's not guilty of murdering two people. It's kind of funny what people find believable these days, right? That verdict, 81 million votes. I'm sorry. Sorry, wrong show. That's for something else. But, it's really, really sad when people are taking something that, let's be honest. I mean, there have been series on Netflix that have explained this ordeal. There have been other documentaries, and there's nothing funny about what happened with O.J. Simpson. There's nothing funny about what he did to Nicole Brown and the 911 calls we got to hear during the discovery of that trial, during the presentation discovery by the attorneys and
Ron Goldman.
But even before the murders, I mean the 911 calls, you could hear the fear and the despair in Nicole Brown's voice. Just like we've heard despair in other victims of domestic violence. And it's really disheartening because despite what that trial was supposed to do in bringing awareness, we continue to see, especially in the sports world, especially in the NFL, that the NFL players are still, being accused of domestic violence, are doing some unspeakable things to their partners.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing videos. We're seeing home security footage of what guys are doing to girlfriends, wives. Yeah, and it's really disheartening because you would think that with this much awareness, right, where the NFL has suspended players for domestic violence, that it would stop, or that we would see that we've seen trials. Right. Listen, I just finished watching the Tommy Lee, Pamela Anderson documentary. Okay, where whether it was the series on Hulu or the actual real documentary with the actual footage from back in the 90s. I mean, this is stuff that has been really embedded in our subconscious for decades now, in pop culture, in movies, in television, in music, in everyday life. And it just seems like the problem is not getting better, despite the fact that we would argue that laws have become more punitive, right, against those that commit domestic violence. I mean, again, it's apples and oranges, but it's almost like drunk driving. New Jersey has arguably the strictest drunk driving laws in the country. People are still driving drunk. People, despite the fact that Trenton is passing legislation to make domestic violence more punitive, people are still doing it. Maybe it's an apples and oranges comparison, but it just seems like it's not working.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's comparable. Laws aren't. I mean, you got to have laws, obviously, but it's one thing I've learned throughout doing this charity is that you are your own first responder, and you really can't rely on everybody else. And it's unfortunate. It's one of the first things clients say to me is, no one's helping me, and I tell them, and no one probably is. That we're gonna have to get through this. I mean, we'll do security for you. At the end of the day, we can't stand guard 24/7. So you are on your own. There are some organizations and programs that can help, but ultimately you are on your own. And I don't know what you would think there's like this big movement to not be bullies, to not be violent, but it's not working. Clearly, it's not working. These anti-bullying campaigns are about as effective as the DARE program in the 90s. It doesn't work. It's not working. People are more violent, and the pandemic and everything else since then didn't help at all. I don't know who he is, but the Colorado Attorney General, I don't know his affiliation, but he said something. He said, the pandemic gave us bad habits. What you're seeing is people started not registering their vehicles. I called it the not putting the shopping cart back. What happened was some people just felt like, I don't have to do this. I don't have to do this. Or someone like you or I, hey, we don't really need to register the vehicle just yet. Or we don't really need to put that shopping cart back. Whereas 3 years ago, maybe we did. Yeah. Maybe people feel like they could get away with more because of everything that's happened. But then you take somebody who's already, kind of a scumbag, feels entitled, is angry, I'm angry over everything going on. And then, whereas maybe they would say things they wouldn't mean or do something they wouldn't do. Now, all of a sudden that person is more violent, whereas 3 years ago, maybe they wouldn't have. So it just seems like society as a whole in the last couple of years has all, the moral, their moral measuring stick, their ethics have dropped, one level. Not everybody, but, for some that just might mean rolling through a red light when they're not supposed to, where they wouldn't have a couple of years ago. I really believe there's a few people that are starting to really hone in on this phenomenon. And he was probably, probably the first public figure that I saw really acknowledge it, that people think like, oh, everybody's been locked up. Like, well, no one's locked up. But there's some, that the lockdowns are for the most part over and hopefully never come back. I mean, I know we said no politics, but that was an awful thing that happened.
You'd be surprised, Nicholas. It might be coming back in the fall, conveniently. But anyway, let's not get into politics.
Well, everybody else can enjoy their lockdowns. I will not partake. But I do believe that just the situation, whether it was created, the things that were put in place, and the actual pandemic, the virus itself, everything that came with it, I truly believe it made everybody more prone to do bad things. That's simple. I really do believe it, and I think it's going to take us a long time to come out of it. I think police stopped enforcing certain crimes, certain things, and I just think everything just got lax. I think it was a perfect storm of all, not just the pandemic, but everything else that has happened, where people feel like they can get away with more because there's less consequences for it. All right. But it definitely gave us some bad habits, and it's going to take us a long time to get out of it. It's not violent crime is up. So domestic violence is tied to it. We have more calls than we can handle right now, not just in number, but the types of calls have gone way worse. I mean, every day my phone is buzzing with a new request, filling out our intake form, and we can't even triage them, Fernando. It's, stabbing, strangulation. It's please help me. He's going to kill me. And we're trying to triage. We only have a few volunteers available. Mm-hmm. Can't get to them. Whereas just a couple of years ago, this just simply was not happening. So,
well, I mean, Nicholas, it remains an epidemic. And folks, if you just joined us right now, it's 6:29 here on the East Coast. Thank you for joining us here on Facebook Live via StreamYard, and also on YouTube. This week's edition of Real Talk, again, with our guest here this evening. He's the CEO of Safeway Out, a extremely important nonprofit organization situated in South Jersey, dedicated to helping victims of domestic violence. He is Nicholas Luciano here tonight. Join us on Jersey First. Nicholas, let me ask you this, because I'm always someone that sort of studies trends, and we know that mental health is a big component about certainly the pandemic and the impact that it had. And again, we may not know the overall impact for some years until more studies come out about the indirect impact that it had on mental health. I mean, people being home, not being able to go out. Well, at least here in New Jersey, right? In New York and Connecticut and Pennsylvania, in great freedom-loving states like Florida and Texas, well, yeah, they got it right when it came to COVID, and it was very different. But I mean, obviously here in New Jersey and New York, for example, people had to stay home for months at a time. And that's really exacerbated, I think, a lot of different problems, I would argue, especially when it comes to abuse of any kind: domestic abuse, domestic violence, child abuse, unfortunately, kids being home, people working from home. Again, a lot of avenues where maybe it was an escape before, those no longer applied because of the pandemic and having to be at home. And I think there's a variable that doesn't get talked about enough, I think, about domestic violence. And I'll just sort of bring this up for me. I mean, I would argue there's a cultural component that doesn't get talked about enough either. I'm Hispanic. I'm Latino. Okay. Not Latinx, not nonsense. I'm Latino. I'm Hispanic. Okay. And, within our community itself, whether it's marriage, cohabitation, even dating, at a very young age, I was taught by my father, like my parents are just recently celebrated 49 years of marriage. They're the most in love bliss couple you'll ever see, right? It's almost like on nausea, right? Like just how in love they're still, and it's great. And obviously they'll approach 50 years next year. But in our community, in our culture, certainly from a very young age, my dad taught me, hey, Latinas, yeah, they're paying where. They can trigger you. They know how to trigger you. They know how to push your buttons. They know how to gaslight you when they have to. Breathe, take a moment. Don't react like you would like to, okay? Be patient, be respectful, because you've never seen me do anything to your mother. Don't do it to any woman. And I learned that life lesson at a young age from my father has really served me well, okay? Now, again, I'm not just saying this is pervasive in the Hispanic cultures, Latino cultures, but, dating, is complex, okay? And, again, I've pissed off a lot of women in my years that I've dated, and I'm sure for some reasons that maybe were justified and maybe not justified. But arguments happen, people get into it, and I've just learned to walk away and just take a deep breath. Believe me, it's not worth it to let it get physical. Because, Nicholas, as a man, I'm never going to win that argument. I'm never going to win that optic. So you know what? Take a break, walk away. I'm not going to lie. In previous years before it became, a misdemeanor, I just take her phone and just throw it. I'm like, yeah, you know what? That'll hurt you more than anything. Okay. And I walked away. Okay. Now I think it's a misdemeanor or a felony because it's, I think, over $500 item. So it's, it's not it's legal. But, in previous years in my adult life, I'd be like, you know what? This will hurt her more than anything. But I've learned to walk away because it can get volatile. The same thing for women, same thing for men. And I think that in a lot of different cultures, that's still a struggle for many people along different age demographics, Nicholas. Is that fair to say?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It really does come down to managing anger. It really does. Some people, they just can't help themselves. I mean, with violence, you have two types of violent, when I'm talking about physical violence, there's all kinds of abuse, so right now I'm just keeping it with physical. There are some people who are just vicious and violent, and they probably always will be. They're predators. They're not like, and these people get in relationships and they will stalk, they will harass, and those are the ones that try to kill. And then you've got the ones who can't control their anger. So they get challenged, or they're in a toxic environment. They can't handle it. So like you, instead of walking away, they retaliate with, the emotions get the best of them. And they act out in violence. And sometimes that is only a one-time deal. Most of the time it's not. It happens when they get angry. But then you got others, they can't handle rejection at all. And like they make it their lifelong ambition to stalk, harass, and ultimately commit a lot of violence. They want to drive fear. I mean, yeah, I think that's a big part of it. And a lot of the I worked with somebody who every day he'd come into work talking about his wife, and it was the most toxic relationship I've ever heard. Like the things that she would say to him, it was abuse. It was emotional, verbal abuse, and I was like, man, you got to get out of that. You have like, oh no, the kids, I can't. My upbringing, my culture is I can't leave. So I was like, well, I go, yeah, but one day you're gonna freak out and snap, And I work with all like former military. So one day it happened. One day he snapped, and I'm certain, obviously as an advocate, I'm not going to say like, well, she, uh, felt bad for her, but I witnessed some of her verbal and emotional abuse. I got to see it. She, the text messages, things that he said. So, certainly not condoning or, I'm not condoning his behavior at all. Sure. But I told him, like, man, I go, because, he knows me and the work I done. Like, he texted me, don't think I'm a monster. I'm like, I go, what you did was wrong. I don't think you're a monster, but, you should have got out of that relationship a long time ago. You should have. You refused to, and it just built and built and built. You didn't get any help. And then, because of your culture, because of, these outdated beliefs, and now you're in jail. The mother of your kids is scared to death of you, I mean, he was out of jail at the time, obviously, but he had to go to trial and all that, So, yeah, I mean, his culture was don't leave, don't do that. And then he couldn't get out of it. So, toxic people, there's toxic females as well. No one deserves to get hit. I mean, unless you're defending yourself, no one ever, doesn't matter if it's male, female. And a lot of attention now is happening with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and that whole fiasco.
Well, I mean, Nicholas, I mean, I didn't interrupt you. I'm sorry. I'll let you finish. But I mean, again, you brought up the Amber Heard, Johnny Depp situation. You brought up, obviously in recent weeks, we've seen the whole fiasco with Jada Smith and Will Smith. Yeah. And I mean, those are examples of toxic femininity that drive arguably regular guys to snap. Again, you're right. I'm not condoning acts of violence whatsoever. But it seems like, and again, it's probably a topic for a different show, right now, we hear a lot about toxic masculinity, and I understand it can exist. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people make it out to be politically. That's me. But there's also, I think, the reality of toxic femininity that doesn't get talked about either. It sort of gets swept under the rug, and I'm sorry it should not be. But I'm sorry, I'll let you finish, bro.
No, I mean, that's it. You got to know when a situation is toxic and when to punt on it. And it's not, and I mean, I had a friend years ago where it was a toxic friendship and it was a female, and I had a hard time leaving the friendship. Eventually I did as I got older, more mature, more secure in myself. My wife had a big part of it. My wife has done, she's been amazing with a lot of things. One thing was, me finding more confidence in myself to know my worth and all that. And I think that has a lot to do with it. Now, in my case, I never would ever hurt anybody, but I remember, like I would be so mad and so angry, then all of a sudden I'm scaring her, my friend. Again, this was years ago, and it wasn't my intent. But she got scared. We got into an argument, and I yelled at her, and I should have known years before that this is not a healthy relationship. I need to leave it. I need to walk away from it. So I do think mental illness, to go way back to your point, mental illness is a problem. Being, knowing people's worth, communication skills, anger management on both sides, de-escalation techniques, knowing when to take that walk, on both sides, I think could quell a lot of this. And I might catch a lot, some things for it, like, oh, you're victim blaming. I'm like, I'm not victim blaming.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I want to be very clear that no one, I mean, unless you commit violence on somebody else and in defense of themselves, they commit violence against you, it's justified. All right. But don't stack the deck against you. If you start to realize that you're in a bad situation, if you know somebody's trigger words and trigger buttons, and you push day in, day out, be mindful of that. Now again, that's I don't want to put a percentage on the cases that are like that, where somebody, whether it's male or female, is just getting pushed, and pushed, and then they lash out. But that is a significant portion of them. Then you got the other ones who are, these guys are, I say guys, but because it's mostly guys, but there are some girls, but mostly guys. They're straight up monsters, and they're not rational. And girl goes out with her friends one night, and who are you seeing? I've had where the abusers were calling them on the phone and making them stay on the phone with them the whole time that they were at work or were not with them. I don't know who has that kind of energy or time, but I've seen some really insane controlling things, but I'm just talking about that part. Don't create a toxic household. Don't create a toxic relationship. I mean, what is the point of life if all you're going to do is create stress and judgment, and antagonize someone and anyone, whatever happened to, live life, laugh, love, whatever.
Sure.
We've kind of lost sight of that. And then we all, everybody's all happy. We're not honest with one another. Everybody's hiding things. They hide things. And then it just comes out. So that's where we're at.
Absolutely, Nicholas. It's a really debilitating and just exhausting experience to see that, unravel before your eyes. And again, when we see marriages or cohabitation or just dating relationships that get very volatile, it's tragic and unfortunate, And again, I'm not trying to say this to be a smart ass on the air, but I've seen it with friends of mine. I've had to deal with some volatile Latinas in my lifetime. They know how to trigger and gaslight you. That's as simple as that. But you learn to walk away. You learn to just sort of be like, all right, let me distract myself. Let me get aggravated doing something else, watching like my Dallas Cowboys or watching my Yankees or something. It's a way of compartmentalizing, I think, as you brought before, the point about anger. Nicholas, let me ask you this, because certainly with running a nonprofit organization, at the end of the day, it comes down to, and I'm not saying this to be, sort of superficial here, but it takes money. It takes money, resources of some kind. What are some of the challenges that Safeway Out has faced as a nonprofit organization? Because again, at the end of the day, it takes money to help victims, whether it's, hosting self-defense courses, helping them with maybe an estimate or an assessment of their home when it comes to maybe installing a security system. Again, all the great programs you offer. And folks, by the way, check out safewayout.org. Make sure you also like them on Facebook and follow them on Instagram as well. All the great programs that you offer. Where does the money come from? I mean, at the end of the day, how far do you have to stretch every dollar to make sure that you're meeting goals and expectations of what you want this organization to be?
Bank robberies. You'd be surprised how lucrative you can,
sell weed, sell marijuana. You do it now.
No, yeah. So we have some great supporters who are pretty consistent. We've gotten creative with a lot of our fundraisers that we do. Right now, we're 100% just individual donor sponsored. That's where we get our money. Although we did just get awarded a grant from the state. Right now, we're working through all that paperwork, and that's only for certain programs. Right now, if I could talk about it real quick, we have a big fundraiser online for a former client. I wish I could do this for all our clients, so we have to pick and choose. Her name is Allison Sheehan. She was stabbed repeatedly by her ex. I don't know how. She escaped with her life, barely. 2 small kids. If you go to our Facebook page and Instagram, it's on there. It's Safeway Out and NJ Nonprofit. You'll see it right at the top. We're trying to help her out as she recovers. We helped her out. We watched the cameras for her for weeks to make sure her and her family was safe. That was a real bad case because he got away. They couldn't sleep. Said he was going to come after them. Cops couldn't find him. They eventually found him. He went to Mexico, came back. He was caught in Arkansas on his way up here to New Jersey. She's got a long road ahead of her, recovering from the attack. So we do fundraisers like that where we split the money with the victim to help her out, and we use our money to help more clients. The good thing about us is I have most of the money, over about 80 85% goes to security equipment, hotels, things like that. No one, no, there's no like big headquarters. There's no like giant money going out. We do some marketing and things like that. But for the most part, the money goes to helping victims directly, an overwhelming number of it. So I get the equipment from overseas. I work some deals. I stay up late and talk to people from other countries and warehouses, and get it right from the supplier. Try to order in bulk, shop around some. That's how I'm able to save a lot of the money. I get 50 cameras that would cost $3,000 here. I'll get it for $1,000. So I'm able to work deals with some companies, even American companies too, to give us a big discount on like their pepper sprays and the GPS panic buttons, things like that. So that's what we do to stretch that money.
Nicholas, let me just ask you this, because I know you're talking about a grant coming from Trenton. Is that coming from the Department of, again, I don't want you to sort of give away too much information, but is it from the Department of Law and Public Safety? Is it
Division of Social? It's actually a federal grant.
Oh, okay.
Given to the New Jersey Attorney General's office to reduce violent crime.
Okay, excellent. Do you find that local municipalities nearby, I know you're in South Jersey, do you find that local municipalities are also being amenable to you, looking to work with you, maybe donate time, any resources, or is that also a struggle right now?
Some are great. It's interesting to see the disparity between the towns and the different municipalities and even counties. Some are great. Some really help the clients out. Some local cops who I didn't even know knew about us are, yeah, Officer so-and-so referred me, they said you guys are great. I don't know what that is, but awesome, and so we've had that in some towns, and then some towns not as much. I don't know what the disparity is. I don't know, but there's some towns that are very helpful, and others just simply not as much, not just with us, but with the clients themselves. Yeah.
Well, I'll say this, Nicholas. What you're doing is amazing. And certainly, folks, check out safewayout.org. They're an incredible nonprofit located in South Jersey. Our guest tonight is their CEO, Nicholas Luciano, here on the program. Certainly, Nicholas, what you're doing, again, is God's work. I can't imagine how exhausted you are, how tired you must be at times with all the advocacy that you're doing. I want to thank you for joining us here tonight. You're a gentleman. I always, whenever I reach out to you, you're always very, again, amicable and want to come on this show. I appreciate being a fan. I won't put you on the spot because obviously it's not what we're talking about today, but I know that on the side, you're a little bit of a fan of my politics and some of my political views. So I'm glad that we're fellow patriots that way. But all kidding around aside, Nicholas, you're doing great stuff. And I do appreciate coming on the show here tonight to talk about advocacy and awareness about a problem that is still so pervasive, not just in New Jersey, but throughout the United States. And folks, he is the Chief Executive Officer of Safeway Out, Nicholas Luciano. Nicholas, I'll give you the last word here tonight on Real Talk.
If I had to pick the single biggest characteristic that we need to be pushing with young people and everybody in general, it's resiliency. And I think everything that we talked about tonight, the problems that we're facing, we've gotten away with that with a lot of the messaging that's been coming out in the last decade or so, that, that all of a sudden being resilient and being tough is somehow bad. They think that being tough is what's causing these problems, and I disagree. I think being resilient, being able to bounce back, to be able to take criticism and seek self-improvement, and to get criticized and move forward, to face bad events and have bad things happen to you and be able to bounce back from it is probably the single biggest characteristic, or the single biggest trait that we need to really be pushing if we want to really end this problem. If you really think about it, what causes violence? People who feel like they have nothing else, people who lash out, people who can't take criticism, people who can't take losing, so they lash out, and then you got victims who they have this happen to them and they just want to give up. I think we need to get back to teaching people that it's all right to be tough, to take criticism, keep on going, keep pushing through. and then the second one is resiliency, but also compassion. I really, if we had those two characteristics, tough, resilient, and compassionate, I really believe you would see a drop in violence. And I just really think the message being put out by a lot of advocates, it's not working. It's clearly not working. It's not an opinion. The numbers don't lie. The stories don't lie. And I really wanted to get that out because it's just something I've been studying, something I've been looking at. And if you look at messaging, especially to young people, to college age and older, we've lost track of that.
Nicholas, well said there. Real quick here, I don't expect it because I don't think we'll hold up on our end, but I love to see another Super Bowl rematch between my Cowboys and your Bills. You're a lot closer than I think my team is right now. How do you feel about your Bills' schedules come out this week? It's that fun time of the year for NFL fans. How do you see your Bills coming up in 2022?
Well, I'm still suffering from that 13-second debacle in the playoffs. I mean, that still hurts. Just like I'm sure you're suffering with your in the bag win and then not. What were you guys doing? Throwing the ball like on third down? You had the game won. What happened there?
It's brutal for me. I mean, it's been a long time. It's been 27 years since I've last seen a Super Bowl, and it's painful. But it seems like your Bills. It seems like your Bills are a lot closer to getting to the Super Bowl, especially with Josh Allen. It seems like he's the real deal. And they made some pickups in the offseason. It looks like the Bills are maybe the team to beat in the AFC East and maybe the AFC. You feel good about that this year?
I feel really good about that. In fact, if the Bills win the Super Bowl, I think I'm going to do a fundraiser where I jump through a burning table. All right. Like all the other Bills Mafia fans.
I got to tell you, I've watched those videos on YouTube. They're a special breed of humans up there in North Park during tailgating. And it's nice to hear that. I think the Bills will be getting a new stadium soon. That's really important because I've been up there. No disrespect, but it's not the best building to be in. They deserve a new building. They deserve a new building. But there's a little bit of an affinity. There's a little bit of a nostalgia, a little bit of a love to that ballpark, right? Like that's like I think the about that ballpark. But definitely something new would be great up there in Orchard Park. That's for sure, folks. He is Nicholas Luciano, the Chief Executive Officer of Safeway Out. Again, one of the leading, I would argue, perennial domestic violence awareness organizations in the state of New Jersey. Check them out at safewayout.org. Make sure you like them on Facebook and follow them also on Instagram. Nicholas, stay well, brother. And again, thank you for being a fan of Real Talk. And please share the episode and tell people how much you love Real Talk with Fernando Uribe.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Have a good one. Folks, great episode here today. Once again with Nicholas Luciano, the Chief Executive Officer of Safeway Out. Again, check out their website at safewayout.org. Donate whatever you can. Every little bit helps to raise awareness and to be an advocate for victims of domestic abuse and domestic violence, as it still remains a serious problem, ladies and gentlemen, not just in New Jersey, but throughout the United States. Folks, before we go, obviously, it's that time of the episode here. And as I've talked about for weeks now, I've decided to anoint myself the unofficial watchdog for bad journalism in the state of New Jersey. Now, there are a lot of dubious suspects every week. And again, this show can only last for so long every Monday night live at 6 p.m. Eastern time on Jersey First YouTube's page and obviously the Facebook Live via StreamYard. But I like to pick a weekly winner of who I think is notorious or guilty of bad journalism in New Jersey. And of course, folks, it's been a couple of weeks. He wasn't on my radar, but he's back on it. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, as we know, yes, it is Maxie Pizarro. Maxie Pizarro from Insider NJ. And without a doubt, ladies and gentlemen, here's a guy that, continues to give us bad journalism as the editor-in-chief of Insider NJ. And I have to say that, I want to blame Mike and Ryan Graham because they continue to be complicit in letting Max be this atrocious when it comes to journalism, when it comes to putting out columns or lack thereof about what's really going on in the news cycle. And I sort of want to bring up one that caught my eye last week here. And let me just, again, ladies and gentlemen, I have to just, take a little laugh here. And again, you can check out the great picture there of Maxie. I'm not sure exactly. It's like one horse's ass on another, but who's riding who, I don't know. But in any event, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about a column last week, more of a sort of a press release of anything, or just a copy and paste of quotes, really. But as we all know, last Monday, coincidentally, after I had Anjali Mehrotra, the president of the National Organization for Women, on the show here, the New Jersey chapter, coincidentally, later that evening, Politico reported that apparently a leak of a draft coming out from the United States Supreme Court was going to overturn Roe versus Wade. Now, again, that's still a draft. We don't know exactly if the justices are going to vote that way, but it seems that that may very well be the case. Who knows, folks? Maybe it's that Hail Mary that Democrats need to save their incumbency in both the House and in the Senate. But I think a lot of Americans will sort of see through this, because let's be honest, if it's not inflation, if it's not rising gas prices, and by the way, folks, it's May. When the summer months come, gas isn't going to go down. It's going to continue to rise. But of course, journalists, or lack thereof, like Maxie Pizarro and others in New Jersey, don't want to talk about this. They'd rather talk about mayoral elections in dumps like Newark, or the cesspool of Patterson, where there's a shooting every other day. But of course, last week I happened to see this column, and it really struck me, because I have to tell you that since last Monday, I've been having a thorough enjoyment of seeing the meltdowns by those on the left in New Jersey, especially a lot of women's groups, right? Like Whiners for Progress, right? Out there in Bergen County. Women for Progress, that are headed up by Erin Chung, one of those insufferable leftists, those do-nothing housewives in Bergen County. They're real good at spending their husband's money, but in terms of doing anything else, it doesn't seem like that's the case. Or other advocates or activists in New Jersey, right? Like the activista, like Patty Cash, Patty Patricia Campos Medina, with her god-awful, boring show, Activista Rise Up, which, by the way, Insider NJ continues to sort of put out there for no apparent reason other than to cure insomnia in New Jersey. But again, going back to Maxie, great picture there, riding a horse. Jesus. Talk about something spelling out like, is someone overcompensating for something? I don't know. Jesus, Max. But we look at what was reported last week. Obviously, it seems like the majority opinion will be written by Justice Samuel Alito. And without question, for the next few days, New Jersey women and allies took to the streets to protest. Right now, again, the show of strength around the state occurred. Again, this is by the article. Occurred this evening following an email blast by MoveOn.org, another insufferable left-wing group, and ACT New Jersey. Jesus Christ, talk about like these insufferable groups, urging concerned citizens to go to their local, county, and state houses of government for demonstrations against the decision. It's really funny, folks, because I've been seeing women in New Jersey and across the country, well, more so here in New Jersey, having meltdowns about screaming, having tantrums, whining essentially about wanting, not being able to kill kids in states that they don't live in. That's essentially what I've been seeing for the last week here in New Jersey with activists, right? Grown-ass women taking to the streets, screaming about the fact that they can't kill kids in states that they don't live in, okay? And now all of a sudden, by the way, women matter again, right? Biology, women. Again, folks, it's the same side of the aisle that has allowed boys to play in girl sports, that has allowed boys to play sports with girls and completely corrupt the integrity of the sport, right? Or naming men to be women of the year, okay? That's what the American left has been advocating for some time now. And now you expect me to take you seriously, right? After you want to be out there talking about birthing person. Folks, we just celebrated Mother's Day yesterday. Mothers, women that give birth, women, biological women, They're not birthing people, okay? They're women. They have a uterus. They have ovaries, okay? But somehow the left now all of a sudden cares about women. It's fascinating, folks. And of course, people like Maxi Pizarro are complicit because instead of writing about that blatant hypocrisy, he'd rather write about this. So the mood was one of shock, rage, and organizational commitment. Quote, even though we knew this could happen with a set of Supreme Court justices hostile to abortion as procedure, it's difficult to see ourselves in a position where we may be overturning 50 years of what those justices said was settled law. Again, that's according to Dr. Leslie Cantor, the chair and professor of the Rutgers University Department of Urban Global Public Health. Again, this is just a column of basic quotations. Really, Max, you couldn't write a column with maybe a few more sentences here instead of just quoting everything? And looking at this here, again, for example, looking at Somerville, right, where some people organized last week. Somerville stands at the heart of the battleground 7th Congressional District, where Tom Malinowski anticipates a general election rematch with former state minority leader in the state Senate, Tom Kean Jr. And many insiders to this point give Kean an edge over the Democratic incumbent in the battleground 7th District. The Republican challenger lost by 5,000 votes in 2020, and redistricting put the Democrat in a more Republican district. Now, of course, we're going at different quotes here, and we have different activists, right? The usual with the signs and everything else that we saw from last week, sort of cutting and pasting quotes. But this is the thing, ladies and gentlemen, and this is where, maybe some on the left in New Jersey, failed high school biology, we know, but maybe didn't pay attention during civics, or maybe didn't pay attention during U.S. history. My understanding, again, I don't have a law degree, but I don't need one to know that it seems like the language that's being crafted is that this is a state, it's going to become a state's issue, that it's going to be relegated for the states to decide. Okay? Well, if that is indeed the case here, there's something called federalism, folks. It's the 10th Amendment right in the Bill of Rights. Okay? And for those of you at home, again, and I have a copy of the Constitution right behind me, right? You can check it out right there. If you need me to mail you a copy, I'll be happy to mail you postage, and you can read about the Constitution, arguably the most sacred legal document next to the Magna Carta, right? Which helped shape this form of government, right? But if we all remember when we took U.S. history, the 10th Amendment, again, is insistent and reminds us about states' rights. When central power is not allocated to the federal government, it's relegated to the states. Okay? And that's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, which really is funny to me, because somehow people with law degrees, people with graduate degrees in New Jersey somehow forgot what the 10th Amendment stands for. And to me, that is hysterical, because again, if that is the language that Samuel Alito is writing in the majority, again, who knows, folks? It seems like the left is now engaging in tactics, whether it's going to the homes of Supreme Court justices and trying to intimidate them. Who knows? It might work. It might force some of them to change their votes. And arguably that's maybe the Hail Mary pass that the left and Democrats are going to need in these midterms to save their incumbency. Who knows? But smart Americans that realize that it costs more to go to the gas station, it costs more to do grocery shopping for your families, that guess what? You may be earning more, but inflation is watering down your wages. Those are the issues that are going to matter during these midterm elections. And I get it, folks. Listen, I'm a pro-choice guy. I understand the need for abortion. I get it. Okay? And I've been very clear about it in social media posts and whatever, in interviews that I've done. When it comes to the woman's life being in danger, when it comes to something happening to the health of the baby, other health complications, I understand the need, and that's why I'm a pro-choice person. But within reason, folks, within reason. The idea of aborting a fetus or a child at 9 months is unacceptable to me. Not to some of the left, right? As we've seen. Okay? But if indeed this becomes a state's issue, what's the problem? To Hetty Rosenstein, the 90-something-year-old activist that we see, right, with CWA or the former CWA president, or to Erin Chung, who's in her 60s, right, who hasn't procreated in God knows how long, or Patricia or Patty Cash, who hasn't procreated in God knows how long either. You live in New Jersey. Don't worry about it, okay? Women that are younger than you, infinitely younger than you, okay, they're not going to lose their right for reproductive freedom. Okay, they're not. All right, it's being codified in New Jersey, folks. And to them out there and all these other activists, men and women, whatever. Do you live in Mississippi? Do you live in Alabama? Do you live in Texas or anywhere else? No. Then don't worry about what they're doing. Because I guarantee you that people in Texas or Alabama or Mississippi aren't worrying about what's going on in New Jersey. The way we placate illegals, the way we coddle illegals, okay? The way we engage in, I don't know, bad bail reform. The fact that, hey, we just talked about domestic violence before, right? The fact that our gun laws in New Jersey are some of those punitive in the country. Hey, you know what? Give women the ability to defend themselves against their attackers. But no, of course not. In New Jersey, you can't do that because trying to obtain a firearm permit and even purchasing a firearm is like jumping through hoops, right? It's like expecting the Mets to win a World Series, which we know isn't happening ever, right? It's the same thing. What are you worried about when it comes to other states? You think that, again, Florida, a better governed state, Texas, a better governed state, okay? Other states in the South, better governed than New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania. Like, really? Don't worry about what's going on down there, okay? You're all about, it's funny about what people on the left like to cite when it comes to the Constitution and rights and freedoms. Well, guess what? The 10th Amendment's written there for a reason. It states rights. Don't worry about what's going on in Mississippi. You're going to move there? Hey, Patty, Aaron, Hetty Rosenstein, all these other insufferable left-wing activists, Amy Torres from the New Jersey Alliance of Immigrant Justice. Are you going to move to Mississippi or Louisiana or Texas or Florida? No, because you got it too cozy here. Okay? So stop your whining and stop your bitching because I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. Okay? Let this decision marinate organically and we'll see what happens when the justices draft an opinion. But let me get back to Maxi Pizarro. And again, folks, these are the issues that Maxi should be writing about. Not copy and pasting quotes here or taking pictures of activists with their insufferable signs. Okay? This is what Maxi Pizarro should be writing about. Okay? But he won't because that would take, again, that 4-syllable word that I'm telling you, the man struggles with besides, obviously, maybe, who knows, maybe he rides a horse better than he does understanding integrity. Okay? Maxi, write about why this isn't as big of a deal as it should be in New Jersey. All it is creating a meltdown, creating, it's galvanizing Democrats or people on the left because they think, hey, newsflash, your reproductive freedom in New Jersey isn't going away anywhere. If you decide to move to Mississippi or Florida or Texas or Louisiana or Alabama, then maybe you have a problem. But it seems like you're not. So what are you bitching and complaining about? I'm sick to death hearing about it. I really am. I'm sick to death. And by the way, that doesn't make me misogynist. It doesn't make me sexist. It doesn't make me hate women. What it makes me is tired and exhausted about the left. Because now you care about women's rights when you don't care about boys playing girl sports or nominating men to be Women of the Year. Okay? Now you care about women. Folks, it is the most hypocritical stands that you could ever take. But do you think someone like Maxi Pizarro, you think he, right, would write about this? Do you think he would write about the fact that, hey, this is a much ado about nothing? Yes, it's galvanizing people on the left. It's getting women all stir crazy in New Jersey. And, men too, activists, whatever. Okay? But do you think that this guy back here would want to write about that? Or write about the fact that, you know what the real problem is in New Jersey? The cost of living, our property taxes, inflation, okay? High gas prices. Do you think this guy, this cowboy back behind me, shouldn't be writing about that? But of course not. Again, that requires integrity. Jesus, Max, it's not that long. Integrity. For example, it's not that difficult a word to understand. This is what you should be writing about. Okay? And I get that tomorrow our mayoral elections in cities like Newark and Patterson, right, that they're big on the radar because of sort of like the political ramifications that they may have. Folks, tomorrow morning, spoiler alert, Newark is still going to be a dump. You couldn't give away a house to me to live in Newark. Okay? You couldn't donate a house to me to live in Patterson. Okay? These are two dumps that continue to be crime infested and there's no relief in sight. You should be writing about that, Maxie, about the fact that these cities, these blue cities, continue to be dumps. And I don't care how much development you want to bring into these cities and whatever condos you want to bring up, you couldn't give a house away to a lot of people in Newark and Patterson. But why aren't you writing about that? Oh, that's right. It's, you know what? Again, you're very cozy working from home, probably making six figures because, again, that's all Insider cares about. It's about making money. And I get it. If I was running a news site, I care about making money too. I don't want to do stuff for free. But have some integrity though. Because if you're willing to take money from all these advertisers, right, to wherever Powerless is coming out, right? Like next month, are we going to have the, little JJ Lassiter's? Oh, by the way, JJ, happy birthday. I know you're celebrating your 70th birthday. So happy 70 to you, Again, enjoy whatever bowl you're smoking or whatever weed you're smoking. So happy 70 to you, right? I get it. There'll be a Powerless next month, right? LGBTQ plus minus division, multiplication, whatever. Okay, I get it. Or the other Powerless that come out during the year. I understand. You want to make money. You want to get advertisers. I don't begrudge anybody about that. But have some integrity, though. Have a little balance in your coverage. Talk about the issues that matter to New Jersey residents. Don't just repeat columns like you do on social media every 2 or 3 days. Come up with something fresh. Write about things that matter to New Jersey voters and New Jerseyans. And I get it, Max. You probably make, a six-figure salary sitting at, at home on your ass typing. And I get it. You'll go and report here and there, jump in your car. I get all that. But talk about what's really happening to New Jerseyans, middle-class, working-class New Jerseyans that don't make the money you do, okay? That don't earn the income you do by doing, again, minimal work, okay? Talk about those issues because they matter to New Jerseyans, okay? The fact that, guess what? When people want to go away for the summer or drive down the shore, it's going to cost them a lot more because of rising gas prices or inflation or the ability to go to the supermarket and buy food for a family of 2, 3, or 4. Again, it doesn't matter to you because you make good money. So, the hell with working class people. But I'm here to stick up for working class people because I'm a working class guy. Grew up in a working class family. And even though I've progressed significantly, I don't forget where my roots are. Okay? It seems like you do. Write about the issues that matter to people. I get it. I get it that, abortion's a big issue right now. Wait until, the decision becomes final, the Duchess's vote, and that's it. But folks, at the end of the day, when I'm looking at news releases or clippings or anything else, how am I supposed to take you seriously, Max? Never mind this. This is gold. I could go off for hours on this. Jesus Christ. Gotta be careful what you post on social media, Maxie. I don't know. It seems like someone's overcompensating for something. But the point is that you need to do a better job in reporting issues that matter to New Jerseyans. And in fairness, you're not the only one that's guilty of this. Tommy Boy with the Star Ledger's guilty of it. Uncle Dave, right, with NJTV, NJPBS, little JJ, right? I get all that. It's not like you're the guiltiest of all, but you're this week's winner for bad journalism in New Jersey. You need to do a better job because these are the issues that matter. I understand that abortion gets everyone all in an uproar. Folks, you don't live down south. Don't worry about it. Does it affect you? No. But if it's going to galvanize people to get donations to Planned Parenthood, like as if we don't give billions of dollars already to this left-wing organization. But why don't you write about that, Max? Oh, but no, you'd rather just take pictures or post photos in a column about people marching with insufferable signs and their pink hats and everything else that goes into it. I'm tired of it. And I'm tired of the left in New Jersey because now all of a sudden you care about women. Please give me a break. Okay. You didn't care about women enough to sort of stand up for them when boys are playing girl sports and disrupting the integrity of sports or nominating men to be women of the year. Now you care about women? Por favor. Please, don't waste my time. Don't insult my intelligence. Unfortunately, Insider NJ does that enough with their daily, what they call examples of journalism. Max, do better. You should do better. Listen, I don't know if you ride a horse as well as you write, but it doesn't seem like that's the case lately. You might want to stick to horseback riding. Seems like that's probably the only thing you're pretty proficient in. And that's our show for this week. Folks, once again, I want to thank Nicholas Luciano, the CEO of Safeway Out, a outstanding nonprofit organization here in New Jersey. You can check out their website, www.safewayout.org. Of course, check them out and make sure you like them on Facebook, and also follow them on Instagram. Folks, check out the Jersey First page as well at www.jerseyfirst.org. That's jersey1st.org. Make sure you like them on Facebook, and of course, follow them on Instagram and Twitter. You can also check out the Jersey First YouTube page. So click on the subscribe button, and you'll get all the up-to-date content brought to you by Jersey First. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining us here this week. A great episode. Again, you can watch it in its entirety on Facebook right after we go off the air. You also watch it on YouTube. And always remember, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, you can always rely on real talk right here with Jersey First. I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, Top 100 Latino via the Latino Spirit Online magazine, and of course, your favorite Latino conservative, Fernando Uribe, saying so long, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. Of course, sharing is caring. Do share the episodes when you can on your social media. And I'll see you next week here live on Monday night for the latest edition of Real Talk at 6 p.m. Eastern Time via Jersey First. Have a great week, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you all. And as always, thank you so much for watching.